no refugee wants to leave their home. Like everyone that I've ever talked to that's a refugee wants to go back to their country. And I'm talking mostly, for me, I've had a lot of experience with Syrians, Iraqis, Sudanese. They all want to go back to their country. Like they're not, this isn't like, oh, we get to come to the US now. It's like, no, you have a family member in the US, your country is being bombed to smithereens, and you have to get out of there. And coming to the United States is better than living in a tent. So that's pretty much the way that they see it. As far as my practice goes, refugee stuff happens for the most part outside of the United States. So refugees get processed by the UN, and once they have a refugee status determination, that's kind of like their ticket to come to the United States. So if you're practicing in the US, you don't really deal too much with the refugee process because that mostly happens outside of the US. But we definitely get a lot of asylum seekers here. I also do a lot of federal court litigation, which is like, fighting for immigrants' rights in the federal courts. There's also employment-based immigration. This is one of the reasons that really drew me to the subject matters because it's so broad. Criminal immigration, which we call crimmigration, kind of drew me into it. But once I got in there, I'm like, okay, there's employment law, there's family law, there's international law, there's contracts, there's treaties. Everything that you and I face in our daily lives that we might need a lawyer for, an immigrant also faces those. So like, for example, if you're getting a job, just you or I, like we don't really think too much about it. We should get a job, right?
Right.
Immigrants have to think about the immigration consequences of their job. If their immigration status lets them get a job, if that job is in line with their particular immigration status. So it implicates so many different fields of law. That's what drew me to it, and that's what makes it so interesting. So,
go
so
ahead.
I think it is a common misconception, that people think that all immigrants or immigration lawyers deal with border crossing issues or people who are refugees fleeing their countries. I know an immigration lawyer who her entire practice is visas for hockey players. She gets hockey players from all over Europe and Canada to come to the United States and play hockey. So it's very broad.
Very broad, and I think just me, and maybe I'm speaking for most Americans, you would think that as many people that immigrate here, or that we're a place where we say we welcome outsiders, that we would have a bit more understanding on the immigration process. And me being from the South Asian community, there's so many people that immigrate not for the purpose of, oh, we want to move back to Pakistan or India. They say, no, we want to create our dreams in the United States. But when I hear terms such as H-1B or green card or F-1B that I've heard a few times, they're just words to me a lot of the times. And I know that, green card might be better than H-1B, and there's some benefits to either one, but would you be able to kind of give a breakdown of at least the important ones of immigration status?
Yeah, for sure. So there's there's certain like categories of immigration, right? There's 5 general categories. The first one is family. Someone can immigrate to the United States through a qualifying family member, like a spouse, a child, a parent, sibling. The second one is employment, which it covers H-1B. H-1B is a specialty occupation visa that's only available for people who have a bachelor's degree. So, for example, like a software engineer, if you have a bachelor's degree in software engineering, your employer can ask for you to be on an H-1B if the job requires, a software engineer to do it. So there's employment-based, which is broad, which covers like athletes and artists and entertainers. Piers Morgan, things like that. John Oliver, Justin Bieber. These are like entertainment-based employment visas. The third category is what we call bad luck, which is what we kind of just talked about: asylum, refugee status, temporary protected status. There's also good luck, which is if you win the diversity lottery visa that goes on every year. There's like 55,000 free green cards that are given away from countries that don't have a lot of representation in the US. Millions of people apply every year, only 55,000 win. So it's kind of like a very chaotic time when the diversity lottery visa opens and you're an immigration lawyer. You get a lot of calls. And then the final one is what we call non-immigrant visas, which are like coming into the United States for a temporary period for a specific purpose. So like a tourist, a student, some sort of like a seasonal agricultural worker, things like that. So those are kind of the 5 basic categories. There's another one that kind of fits under employment, which is investment. So you can invest. Actually, you can these days you can kind of just buy a green card for $1.2 million if you have it. So if you have $1.2 million, then you can essentially just buy your way to a green card.
Wow, just buying your way. I'm sure that's how, the people you named, Justin Bieber and well, theirs is more entertainment.
Piers Morgan, I actually heard him talk about this with Bassem Youssef the other day. They both have EB1 green cards, which is the employment-based first preference, which is for aliens of extraordinary abilities in the arts. So Bassem Youssef and Piers Morgan both came to the United States because they are aliens of extraordinary ability in the arts.
I always hear that word aliens and just think of people from Mars, but for some reason that's still the legal term used for
There's a movement
immigrants.
To change it. There's a movement to change it to non-citizen. Okay. It's catching on right now, somewhat, and now if anyone says, it's crazy because when we have to go to court and we have to read the text of the actual like law, we have to say alien, but it's kind of like taboo now to say alien. But
well, the fact that you brought up the celebrities such as Piers Morgan, Bassem Youssef, Justin Bieber, it reminded me of the 21 Savage incident where he was being shipped back to Britain, or there was a lot of misinformation on it. I didn't exactly know what was going on from a legal standpoint, but I know that there was a lot of people poking jokes online, talking about his British heritage. What was the legal implications in that scenario?
If I understand correctly, 21 Savage probably, I think I read this somewhere online, so don't quote me, but I think 21 Savage came with his mom as a tourist a long time ago and just overstayed his visa and never left.
By that many years?
Yeah. So, and it's not unusual. It's not unusual. People come to the United States, they overstay their tourist visa, they fly under the radar. They wait till their kid turns 21 and their 21-year-old kid can get a green card for them.
Maybe that's how he came up with his name.
21 Savage.
He was just like,
oh man. Yeah, I actually have clients. I have this old Desi woman, really sweetest old lady, and she came to the United States forever ago, overstayed her tourist visa, and her son just turned 21, and he's gonna petition for her. So she's been just flying under the radar, just not making any problems, living her life low key, following the rules, and now she's finally, after all these years, hopefully going to be able to get some sense of permanency.
That's awesome. Yeah. No, and it sounds like you're changing a lot of people's lives. I'm sure mostly for the better, but I'm not saying that you're making other people's lives worse in any way, but what I am trying to say is there's probably so many challenges that go into immigration, and there's so much, as you just showed, so much complexity that goes into it, and the narrative of the immigration lawyer now with so many immigrants that have come to the US is we don't need any more and we need to keep them out. So what would you say is the biggest challenges of not just being an immigration lawyer, but having your own law firm?
I think that the biggest challenges for me is making sure that I put every single client of mine on a path to success. You know what I mean? And that takes just a lot of time and energy and research and understanding the particular individual situation. But I feel like once I've got that initial determination about this is the best path for you, once I get that set up, they're pretty much kind of off to the races. But that sometimes can take a long time to develop, that kind of strategy plan, and it also can be, it can change. It's contingent on certain things happening or not happening. So that's the biggest challenge, but it's also one of the most enjoyable parts of the job, which is like every client comes to you with a unique set of facts and a unique problem, and you have to draw upon your skills and your knowledge to be able to kind of prescribe to them a remedy that's going to help them solve their problem. So it's a puzzle. It's creative. It's very interactive with the client. So it's a challenge, but it's also very rewarding.